All right. Today we're gonna be I'm gonna be teaching human factors. So for the objective today, pretty much just so that the learner can explain several human factor concepts. And some of the main ones are going to be like our key points. So knowing and just being able to explain the I'm safe checklist. So I'm safe checklist, hypoxia and the different kinds of hypoxia, and why hypoxia is so dangerous. In terms of instrument flying, it kind of all boils down to trusting your instruments, right? And we'll talk about why that is when we talk about the details in the human factors. And then, talk about CO2. We'll talk about all kinds of substances, but particularly CO2, or I mean CO, carbon monoxide, right? Not carbon dioxide, but carbon monoxide, since that's, if we're flying a small piston plane that uses a heating shroud to it's using the exhaust to heat the air that we're going to be breathing in. So if there's a crack in the heating shroud, then we're obviously going to be breathing in some of that carbon monoxide. So we'll talk about what happens with carbon monoxide. Obviously not good things, because people kill themselves with carbon monoxide all the time. So yeah. And I mean, you know several things about your body. I'm sure we're all humans and we know things about our bodies, but things change when you go up in altitude, when you're flying a plane. There's certain things you got to be aware of, certain things that matter more. So we'll talk about several of those things. So part of learning about human factors is also learning about how to treat the things if we notice, treat the things we notice. So obviously, if we get hypoxic, you want to begin to get or you want to get more oxygen, right? Or if you're getting poisoned by CO, you want to get less CO. You want to breathe in fresh air. What the heck, man? What the heck is going on? And we can talk about how we can show a video real quick to show how destructive this kind of hypoxia can be before we talk about it, so then you actually pay attention. Okay, so let's see. Let me find a video here. Let's do something like, is it Ace of Spades or something? Is it Six of Spades or something? Six of Spades. Hypoxia. Oh, Four of Spades. This one's fun.
9 of Hearts.
And as you feel your symptoms, go ahead and let us know what they are.
6 of Spades. I feel really good right now. 6 of Spades. No symptoms yet.
So basically what's going on in this video is they're telling him to hold the card up and look at what it is, and telling everybody what it is. And obviously his mask is off, so he's getting hypoxia. And eventually, he'll just start randomly just saying the card that he thinks it is, but the card, it's not even.
What was the last card?
He's just saying, so he's stuck on the same card. Mental confusion, that brain fog.
4 of Spades. Tingling in the toes right now.
As well as
Look at that card again. I didn't think that was a spade.
Really, like he's not He's just fine. He's just fine like that. Which we're talking about euphoria and how dangerous euphoria can be for flying. So, because obviously flying involves a lot of decision making, good judgment. And if you can't do that, you're in a very dangerous situation, right? As a pilot, you're not really a pilot. You're just kind of a passenger in your own plane. So you can watch the rest of that video at your leisure.
What are you feeling right now, number 14?
5 of spades, 5 of spades.
There we go.
What are you feeling, sir?
4 of spades, 4 of spades.
What is it? What's your symptoms, sir?
What are you feeling, number 14?
4 of spades, 4 of spades.
What's your symptoms, sir?
4 of spades right now.
What would you do if you thought this was the aircraft? What card is that, sir?
This is 4 of spades.
So what would you do if you thought this was the aircraft?
4 of spades right now.
Can you gang out your regulator, sir?
Sure.
Show us what you would do if you were feeling like this in the aircraft.
What would you do right now, sir, if you was in the aircraft? 14, sir.
Sir, why don't you go with your regulator?
Yeah, see, alright, so what would you do right now when you're in the aircraft?
Sir, gang out your regulator!
What he's stuck on. So you
Go ahead,
in this
gang
state,
load your regulator,
you
sir.
can't
Gang load, gang load!
Gang load, gang load, gang load your regulator.
Sir, you are gonna crash and die! Gang load your regulator!
14, sir. Go ahead and gang load. 14, sir.
Well, this may
Look,
seem
you
like
don't gang load, you just
right now,
crash.
not flying that high.
I thought when the F-3 goes,
If you're trying to do this for
Listen,
free,
sir.
or even for fun, you might have opportunities there. Or you will. If you do it for free, you probably will have opportunities where you're flying high. In the altitudes where this is a grave concern, right? You need to learn about it so you can stay safe.
So watch what he does now.
put him Jax. Are you sure that's not 4 of spades? It's Jack of diamonds.
Okay, sir, you can stop now.
Cool. Alright. I'm killing my borrowed time. Ba 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 bum. Bum 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 ding 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 bum bam 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 bum bum bam bam. You unfocusing little clicky maka. Yeah. So we'll talk about hypoxia now. Might as well. All right, we've already kind of talked a little bit about it, but we'll just talk about what hypoxia is. So hypoxia is just lack of oxygen. So think reduced oxygen. If we were to look at the Webster's or whatever, look at the roots of these words, this might help us out. High prefix. High prefix is hypoxia broken down. I mean, oxia obviously is oxygen. Greek root. So hypo is under, below, or less than. Oxia is oxygen. So less than enough oxygen, below the right amount of oxygen, under the amount of oxygen you need for vital functioning, right? So let me turn the camera back on. Gosh dang it. reduced O2. All right, that's how I'll abbreviate it from here on out. And there's going to be 4 types of hypoxia, right? There's going to be hypoxic hypoxia, hypemic hypoxia, stagnant hypoxia, and histotoxic hypoxia. So we'll start with the first and most basic form, which will be, why the heck does this keep zooming out? I hate this. I hate this so much. Where? Let me look at this webcam. There's an update available. Maybe that's why it sucks. That's why it sucks. Well, we can just talk a little bit more about oxygen, why oxygen is important. So every part of our body needs oxygen. And how does it get oxygen? How does our body get oxygen? What the suck. Oh, whoa, man. Why is it doing that? I don't know why it's doing that. I hate it though. I hate it so much. Let's see what that does. I don't know. But, alright. So, hypoxia, right? So, your body needs oxygen. Your body gets oxygen through blood. So, hypoxia is in relation to, your circulatory system as well as your respiratory system. They're connected, right? Because your respiratory system takes in the air, the oxygen that your blood's going to use, that your blood is going to distribute across your body, right? So that takes place in the lungs, and then eventually goes to the heart, where the heart pumps it to other parts of your body, right? We've probably taken some kind of anatomy class. We understand that as much as that's important, right? Which is very important. So, hypoxic hypoxia, the most basic form. All right. Hypoxic. So, hypoxic hypoxia is a result of insufficient oxygen available to the lungs. So, think like drowning or blocked airway are both good examples. So, examples: drowning, right? Because you're not able to breathe oxygen because you're underwater. Drowning, blocked airway, so maybe you're choking, so you can't get the oxygen because it's blocked. Choking, which is kind of what drowning is, I guess. For pilots, this one I'm going to put an asterisk next to, because this is the important one for pilots, right? So the reduction of partial pressure of oxygen at high altitudes. So reduction of partial pressure. This can be boiled down to, screw it, high altitude. Because as we climb up, the air is less dense, right? And the partial pressure of the atmosphere reduces. So that whole parcel of air, while the proportions are still the same, there's just less of it. So you're getting less oxygen, you're getting less nitrogen, but you're also getting less oxygen as well. So and then your body can't perform like it needs to. That's why people train with those inhibiting masks. And that's why people train Pikes Peak. That's why they run up and down Manitou Incline. That's why they do all that kind of crap. So, because they're trying to get their body adjusted to that. They're trying to enhance their body. Yeah. Coolio, Dulio. So, another form of hypoxia is stagnant hypoxia. Well, I don't need that out there. So, stagnant. Bro, the light is so bad. Why? Why, man? Why? I hate that. I hate it. tissues die. Well, you can read that. I believe in you. I believe that you can read that. It's called stagnant. So it's when the blood is not moving to the tissues, right? So when we talk about tissues, this is when we're thinking about the brain. We're thinking about your fingers, your toes, your nose, your eyes, So that blood needs to be distributing everywhere. That's why, right, if you have blood loss or say you have a stroke or something, you're not getting blood flow, or an aneurysm, something like that, you're not getting blood flow, right? It's blocking that. So then your tissues start dying. That's why you get brain damage from those conditions, because your cells are not receiving the oxygen they need. Cells and tissues, kind of think about those as the same in this context. So that's the problem, right? Blood not moving, right? Stagnant. Think about a stagnant pool of water. Think about that in the body. Stagnant pool of blood, right? It can't move. Immediate example, this is a tourniquet. You put a tourniquet on your leg. You're preventing blood flow, right? So this is good when you want to stop the bleeding, but after a while, if you don't get medical treatment, right? If you leave that on too long, the cells are going to start dying. Your tissues are going to start dying because they're not getting the blood and oxygen they need. So yeah, think about your arm falling asleep for that. In the term of for pilots, so I'll do some examples here. We talked about tourniquets. So watch this, spelled right the first time. Watch this. Yep, that's what I'm talking about. Tourniquets, and then I'll put an asterisk here. This is the pilot one. G-forces, all right? Also, not hugely applicable, but it could be. You can fly planes pretty soon that you're going to be able to pull some G's. So this is important to know, like the human capability, right? So your heart's not able to compensate for the amount of pressure put on by the G-forces. Really what we're thinking about, so the G-forces, right, they're preventing your blood from flowing. So think about if you had, think about centrifugal force. So if you had like a can or something, you were spinning around a circle, the fluid stays on the outside, stays down here, right? So that would be what your blood would be doing. And say the top of this can was your head, then you would not be getting blood flow, right? Which is why you can pass out from too many G-forces. So I'm getting my getting my borrowed time. Alright, so cool. We talked about stagnant. Now we can talk about hypemic, which, oh, where the heck did my marker go? You've got to be kidding me. Random marker in here, maybe. So, we're going to talk about some hypemic hypoxia. Right? Yes. Hypemic. So, when we talk about hypemic hypoxia, let's go ahead and we can figure this out ourselves, right? We can look and see what hypemic even means, right? Look at this. Hypemic. You can do this with any kind of word you find. Hypo. So we got the prefix hypo, meaning under, below, or deficient. We got that. Root, whatever. Hypemic, and then boy. In the suffix used to form an adjective indicating a state of being. So it's a state of low oxygen resulting from a reduced blood oxygen carrying capacity. So now we can talk about why that might happen. All right, so why might your body not be able to transport blood/oxygen very well? So cannot transport, and we know from what we've been talking about is that our blood is our transporter. That's how our oxygen gets throughout our body, right? So when we're talking about not being able to transfer, we're talking about our blood. So we're talking about blood diseases. We're talking about not having enough blood, right? Maybe you had some severe blood loss. Maybe a bird flew through your windshield, your windscreen or whatever, and now you're bleeding out a lot, right? And obviously, you can't put a tourniquet on your head, or on your neck, because that's not going to last very long. So hypemic, let's go ahead and start with some examples. You get blood loss. I think one of the best ones is, what did we just say? Blood diseases, right? It's like anemia, stuff like that. Deficiencies and whatnot. Hemoglobin not being able to bind oxygen molecules. So hemoglobin is the molecule that transports oxygen. So those are those circular things in your blood, right, that make up kind of your blood cell looking things. That's the scientific term, is the looking things. But anyways, so those things, what would cause the hemoglobin not to attach very well? Something else taking its place, maybe? Carbon monoxide poisoning. So this is where you get CO poisoning as a possible culprit for this. All right. Cool. Good stuff. Now, I'm going to erase some of this so I have room, but I hope you all wrote that down. I hope you all wrote that down very well. Very well. Very well. Very well. Now we're going to go histotoxic, which this one I had to double back on, because this one is the one that actually means cells, right? So, histotoxic cells. Histo refers to tissues or cells. So you can break that down. Histo equals cells. And then we have the ending oxic means poison, toxic, right? We should know that just by knowing that, It's poison. So, histotoxic hypoxia. How could this reduce your mental functioning by not giving you enough oxygen? So, our cells are being poisoned. Oxygen is being transported to the cells, but the cells are unable to use it. Cells are unable to use it because they're being inhibited by some substance, right? So this would be like drugs, alcohol. So any kind of drug. This is why the FAA is so stringent on the approved medications and things that you're allowed to take, because certain medications can reduce the capacity that your body has, that your blood can carry oxygen, right? So oxygen being transported to the cells, but the cells cannot use it. So examples, once again, CO falls into this again, all right? And then we're going to go with alcohol. Alcohol is a crazy one. The effects of alcohol increase drastically with altitude, There's a graph we could look at. In fact, we need to actually do some of this because we haven't been. I should reference, I'll show you where I've been finding this information out. We're going to go to the, so I'm going to take the t-shirt off my monitor and let's go to P-Hack, right? P-Hack is the beautiful thing. It's really easy to read and it's made for pilots to understand things. So let's go there. Let's go there. Yeah, open up, buddy. Open up, Buttercup. Okay, here we go. Okay, should be one of the earlier ones. Maybe not. Maybe I lied. It's the very last one. Isn't that crazy? Aeromedical factors, health, and physiological factors. Hey, look at this. It's just literally talking about all what we just talked about. The 4 main types of hypoxia. Cool. And it breaks these down. So if you want more information on these, come straight here. Yeah, look at this. Interesting stuff. Dangers of transporting dry ice. So that looks like it's because of CO2 gas. So obviously, you know, not good. CO2 is not good either because, right, we breathe out CO2 for a reason, right? It poisons us over time if we get too much of it, just like most things. Hyperventilation we will talk about soon. I forgot what I was coming here for. I forgot completely what I was coming here for. Oh, I was going to look at alcohol. So histotoxic hypoxia, which is what we're talking about. So they're unable to make use of it. The cells can't make use of it. So when we're talking about cells, we're talking about cellular respiration. So the impairment of that cellular respiration can be caused by alcohol and other drugs, like what I mentioned. So this is the thing I was like quoting, but I couldn't quote it, you know. So research has shown that drinking 1 ounce of alcohol can equate to an additional 2,000 feet of physiological altitude. So meaning that's what your body would actually feel even though you weren't that high, right? So that is not good. That is not good. And we'll talk about one of the most important parts with hypoxia is the symptoms of hypoxia coming up next. So pretty much all this written out. We'll talk about this. I'll write this out on the board. Cool. So it's important to be situationally aware when you're in the plane, but it's also important to be situationally aware of your own body. Knowing what can affect you so that you're not surprised by it, so that you don't really even need to act on it, right? You don't want to be put in that scenario in the first place. But if you were put in that scenario, say maybe there was some leak and you didn't know about it, right? You flew this plane. I mean, you don't know everything that's going on with the maintenance and stuff. And you flew this plane, it had an exhaust crack. So now you're breathing in carbon monoxide. You're flying around. You're getting headaches. You're feeling dizzy. You're doing all this stuff. Maybe you start to feel euphoric, which can be very dangerous. So let's talk about these symptoms here. So, oh, you joke, man. You absolute. Hopefully that light's not too bad. I wish I had I put a t-shirt up in front of the monitor, but that's so freaking annoying. I hate it. I wonder if I can toggle with the settings. I wonder if I can filter something. Whoop, whoop. Oh! I'm killing my borrowed time. Ba 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 ba. What if I just zoom in really far into where I'm actually doing crap? Watch this. Of course, the zoom disappears when I need it the most. Where'd my zoom go? You freaking jerk. You absolute buffoon. Oh, here we go. Oh, no. Oh, now it's blurry. You piece of crap. You piece. Okay, here we go. So, let's talk about symptoms. Now I can write really small and you can actually see what I'm writing. I should have done this a long time ago. Alright, so just going down the list here. We'll say headache. That's the most common one, probably. Right? And obviously, that can be caused by a lot of things. So you kind of, I mean, sure. We'll talk about I'm safe. Checklist. So if you are having headaches, you might think about ending the flight. If you can, that is, But headaches can be a sign of hypoxia, lack of oxygen to the brain. And what else? I'm going to just go straight off of the thing here because it's easy. So, cyanosis. We're kind of flip-flopping here. But this one could have cyanosis. So, break it down, right? Cyan equals blue. Osis means whatever the crap it means. What we're dealing with here is blue fingers, blue extremities, blue lips, blue nose, blue ears, blue fingers, blue toes. So, if there's a lack of oxygen to a part of the body, that part of the body might appear blue in nature. So, that's a symptom of hypoxia. And that's a pretty sure sign. If you see that, you probably want to be maybe concluding the flight, right? Especially if you're low altitude, because that could be a carbon monoxide leak, which we'll talk about carbon monoxide later, but it's odorless. So, okay. The next one that it says in the PHAC is decreased response to stimuli and decreased response to stimuli and increased reaction time. So it means it takes you longer to react. So basically, you're slow. I'm just gonna, yeah. you see something and it takes you maybe 10 seconds longer than it would normally take you to respond to it. You see a plane and you're like, hey, look at that plane over there. And then as soon as you know it, you're even closer to the plane. Here we go. We're going to go with impaired judgment, which should seem obvious, right? Maybe you notice this of your flight instructor even. So you're flying along and you notice your flight instructor doing weird stuff. And you're like, oh, shoot, I might be next. I might be the next person to do a stupid thing. You might ask the flight instructor what's going on, ask them about their health, right? Make sure they're in the right state of mind to be flying. And ask that about yourself as well. Euphoria. This one, extremely dangerous. I think if you were to have to do a list of like what the most dangerous symptoms are, euphoria would probably be up there. Because euphoria is a false sense of joy or false sense of securement. So, false sense of security, we'll say. It just makes you feel really happy, right? It's kind of like being drunk. So, and obviously, if you're in that state of mind, you're not going to notice things. You're not going to realize. Even if you're in a plane that's plummeting towards the ground, if you're euphoric, you're probably going to be like, well, heck, I'm A-okay, I'm doing quite all right. There's a good video that explains this one further as well. The famous Ypsilanti video, somewhere in Ohio, I don't know. But I'll just show you that one so you can reference it later as well. It'll help cement the fact. Let's see. Yep. Ypsilanti. Ypsilanti hypoxia. And I believe this was a private jet, maybe. It's pretty interesting. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to show you where it's at. But, yeah. It's pretty funny. You have to watch it.
Cloud 66, Cleveland, out of here.
Cloud 66, 555.
Cloud 66, Roger, you're keying your mic and it's staying on there frequently, so please be careful.
Cloud 66, declaring an emergency.
Sir, he's declaring an emergency with his flight controls.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir, he said affirmative on that.
All right, Coletta 66, Roger, What are your intentions?
Request sector Ypsilanti.
So this is taking every ounce of strength that he has to try to save this plane. I can only imagine. I feel like it would kind of be like you're on the brink of falling asleep, and you got to act to save your life. Like you keep falling asleep, but you have to go towards the light. You can't go towards you can't go towards the light. I should say. You got to stay in the moment, right? You can't go off into Never Ever Land and die. So. Yeah, he's fighting really hard, and I guess I didn't notice.
Sir, he's looking for vectors.
NATCA Archie Awards, where NATCA gives out awards for best ATC. So, good job for ATC on this, I guess. They did do a good job. They were communicating through other pilots to understand the whole situation, and they helped get him down safely. I believe they survived. So that's a best case scenario. We'll talk about other. If we want, we can talk about other things later. Case studies like Payne Stewart, private jet that there was a leak somewhere. Maybe it was just a slow leak. Maybe it was a rapid decompression. Who knows? But whatever the case was, the end result was pretty catastrophic. So. All right. Continuing with the high. Still blurry. Gosh dang it. You piece of crap. You piece of crap. We'll talk about visual impairment. Right? So this is very interesting too, because I've actually experienced this one. So I went down to Oklahoma City and experienced the hyperbaric chamber, and they gave us a color wheel, and we were looking at it, and then when they put the oxygen back in the room, you kept looking at it, and it got really bright. All of a sudden, all the color came back, and you're like, well, hey, where had the color been all this time? You didn't realize it because it just happened over time. But your eyes require a lot of oxygen to work right, and they're one of the first things to go. So it's very important. They even recommend, I believe, don't quote me on this yet, I'll find it, but it's something like the FAA recommends not going above 10,000 during the day and 5,000 at night. So not flying above 5,000 feet at night unless you have supplemental oxygen because of this. Not because not because you're going to immediately lose consciousness because of hypoxia, but because you're going to be impaired slightly. Your judgment might be impaired slightly. Your eyesight might be impaired slightly. That kind of thing. Drowsiness. So I guess I kind of told that on myself when we were talking about the Ypsilanti, trying to fight that drowsiness. It kind of felt like he was trying to fall asleep almost. Other things, lightheaded and dizziness. Yeah. Lightheadedness. Dizziness. All right. Moving on, tingling in fingers or toes. So, this is interesting too, because this is kind of the same sensation as if you were to fall asleep on these things. And so tingling in fingers or toes, and numbness. I'm not gonna actually here. Whoa. There you go. Tingling. That's all you need to know. Tingling and numbness, right? So, thinking back to stagnant hypoxia, if you could get the same sensation even if it wasn't from stagnant hypoxia, because your toes are furthest from the heart, your hands are furthest from the heart, your fingers, right? So if you feel this tingling, that might be a clue that things aren't going well in my body. Things are not going well. So you might have to check that out, right? Another very important chart that we need to look at in terms of hypoxia and the importance of it for pilots is the time of useful consciousness chart. So this is a chart that shows exactly what I just said, the time of useful consciousness, right? So I'll zoom in here so you can see this. This chart right here. So 20,000 feet, you might have 30 minutes or more of useful consciousness. So useful consciousness defined. I don't know if it defines it in here. Let's see if it actually defines it. I don't want to just say crap. Treatment of hypoxia. Of course, we'll talk about that after we talk about this. So, well, I would talk about the eyesight thing. As hypoxia worsens, the field of vision begins to narrow, and instrument interpretation can become difficult. We talked about this false sense of security, right? Can be deceived into believing everything is normal. That's that euphoria talking. So, time of useful consciousness is the time that you have to make a life-saving decision. That's what's coming to my brain. I think it's right. So, it's the time it's going to take you to make corrective action, right? Put on your mask and then descend is what the corrective action is for altitude-related hypoxia, like rapid decompression, right? So you're at 45,000 feet, and I think there's some regulation where you have to have a mask on anyways when you're like at 45,000 feet. But if you say you're at 35 or 40, look at this. You have 30 to 60 seconds in that case. And startle effect is a real thing, right? So you don't know how long that startle effect is going to take place. So you're going to want to get that mask on as soon as possible and start descending the aircraft to save everybody else. Because the little Dixie cups, they don't offer that much oxygen. Just enough oxygen so that you can descend to a safe altitude. A lot of people don't know that. So this chart, very important. You can reference this whenever you need to. It's in the PAC, chapter 17, air, medical, human factors. So now that we looked at that, it's good. I think we talked about symptoms well enough. We can get on to the treatment of hypoxia. Treatment is also kind of simple. Because, I mean, it's not much you need to do. It's pretty straightforward, right? You need to get back your oxygen. So what does that entail? If it's, well, let's just see what the PAC says. I'm going to look and see. Treatment of hypoxia includes flying at lower altitudes, and / or using supplemental oxygen. So, right, descend. Well, I'm going to say it in the opposite order just because I feel like that makes more sense and is a safer thing to say. Think about supplemental oxygen. And then think about descend. In real life, you're going to be doing these at the exact same time probably, but just for clarity, like, help yourself before you can save the whole plane, right? Because if you go out, plane is flying itself for a while, maybe if you have it on autopilot, but eventually you're going to run out of fuel, so not good, not good. All pilots are, susceptible to oxygen starvation. It's not something you can help your body a little bit by working out and staying fit, but that's not going to help you much, really. Everybody's affected by this, regardless of your physical health and endurance. You can't really acclimatize to this, right? So acclimate. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. And I mean, if the treatment of hypoxia can change depending on the different form of hypoxia, right? So when we were talking about say we were talking about like stagnant hypoxia, stop sitting on your arm, or take the tourniquet off your leg, that kind of thing. Histotoxic, land the plane, don't drink alcohol, right? That's breaking a FAR. You're not supposed to be drinking and flying or being under the influence at all of alcohol, being hungover, anything like that, which we will talk about also. Okay, moving on. Actually, I'll stop. I'll cut.